Have you ever been to like a diet or eating program where they just told you, just listen to your body, and when you're full, stop eating? And has that not worked for you? If it hasn't, I'm going to explain to you why. And why it's not because you just are weak-willed or maybe don't want it enough. The thing is that sugary, starchy, ultra-processed foods are engineered specifically to bypass that feeling full, I've had enough, let's stop eating message. So even people who are not addicted to food, for food addicts, it is like mission impossible because it actually hijacks that system. And it also hijacks the brain where urges and cravings happen. And for people who are more sensitive to that mechanism of how these actual foods are actually engineered to make you eat more, even though you're full, to make you want them, even though you know you shouldn't, to make you feel like if you don't have any, like you have to have some, and it doesn't matter what, the F it syndrome, like they say. Well, if you are more sensitive to those messages, like I am, because I'm a food addict, well, then you're in real trouble. But even for people who are not addicted to food, who are less sensitive, even if they just have a mild sensitivity to it, what's going to happen is when you eat these sugary, starchy, ultra processed foods, what happens is that you eat more than you intended. You eat more often than you intended. You are tempted to have it even when you know you shouldn't. And that is one of the main drivers of our toxic food environment, is that when you eat these ultra processed foods, you cannot rely on that natural intuition, on that natural satiety of feeling full to lead you and guide you to know when to stop eating. That is why over 50% or 60% of the population is either overweight or obese. That is why a huge amount of the population is metabolically ill because they are eating these foods more than they should. And what is should? Well, according to what the food industry tells you, or according to what, our food culture has dictated now, absolutely not. But here's the good news. When you eat real food that God and Mother Nature intended human beings to eat, then you can rely on that natural satiety. Then, for most people, for the majority of people, there's a certain minority that they need to put those limits out from the outside. But most people, what happens is that the natural satiety and intuition of I've had enough, it's time to stop eating, kicks in. Sometimes it can take some time. That's why, even for people who are not food addicted but are overweight and want to lose weight or have been eating in an unhealthy way and they're worried about it, I always recommend a detox. Like at least 30 days, 60 days without sugar and flour, because what it does is, even for people who aren't addicted to food, it recalibrates the system. It recalibrates that natural satiety that comes from natural, real food. It it stops that constant craving and nudging that, like, I have to have something sweet, I have to have something sweet. That calms down. And then some people can go back to this, like if they're very, very aware of the amounts that they eat and don't depend on their natural satiety or intuition for ultra processed foods, they can go back to having some once in a while. People who are like me, who are actually addicted, kind of have to treat it like quitting smoking, right? If you can have one cigarette at a pub and be done with it, great for you. But, I mean, smoking is not healthy, but if you enjoyed it and you had to do something a little bit unhealthy once in a while, it's not the end of the world. But for people like me who are actually addicted to these foods, so if you want to keep that natural satiety going and you want to keep that natural intuition for natural foods going and constant, then it has to be like a heavy smoker who quit smoking and not just a detox in the hope that you can go back with more control. For people like me, It's a all or nothing deal. And then nothing is much, much easier because that satiety, that intuition, that natural, full, nice feeling, and that I don't have this constant gnawing wanting and hunger in my head going 24/7. It leaves me free to live the rest of my life freely with peace of mind around food and with this natural fullness and also with this inner wisdom like when I've had enough in a meal. Now, some people also have problem with volumes of real food. That happens to me sometimes too. And when that happens, it's important to put outside boundaries around the eating. But I can tell you that for most people, when you stop eating these ultra processed foods that actually hijack that satiety, that natural satiety, many, many times eating real food makes that real natural satiety come back. If you think this video is important, like it, share it, and follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And I would like to announce that my English site has finally gone on air. So please visit there. And there is a questionnaire there in the site where you can ask yourselves some questions if you want to find out if you may have a problem with food addiction or not. See you next week on Zippy's Weekly Message. Bye bye.